We do not have our normal chair today. Mayor Deputy Lines is out, so I will be chairing your meeting. And for those of you who are maybe newer to our group, because I know we have a few alternates today, my name is Tuere Faola, and I'm the manager of our Sustainable Community team. But before we get started, if I can ask Tessa, who's clerking our meeting, to do a roll call to confirm we have a quorum.
For the City of Carlsbad, Rob Efford.
Here.
City of Chula Vista, Desmond Corley.
Here.
City of Coronado, Jasmine Bridges. Here. County of San Diego, Tara Lieberman. Here. City of Del Mar, Karen Brindley. Here. City of El Cajon, Noah Alvey.
Here.
City of Encinitas, Patty Anders. Here. And I know some people came in later, so if City of Escondido is present, they are absent. City of Imperial Beach, Megan Openshaw. Here. City of La Mesa, Lynette Santos. Here. Is City of Lemon Grove. Absent. City of National City, Carlos Aguirre.
Here.
City of Oceanside. Absent. City of Poway is absent. City of San Diego, Kobe Tomlin. City of San Marcos, Saima Kirishi. Here. City of Santee is
Here.
here. It is Michael Coyne. City of Solana Beach is absent, and City of Vista is absent. Air Pollution Control District is
Mike Watt here.
here, Mike Watt. Caltrans, Reese Allen.
Here.
San Diego County Local Agency Formation Commission is absent. North County Transit District, Lillian Doherty. Here. Metropolitan Transit System is absent. San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Sydney Noyce.
Here.
San Diego County Water Authority is absent. Port of San Diego is absent, and Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association is absent. That concludes the roll call and confirms a quorum.
Thank you, Tessa. Okay, so now I would like to review the meeting process for both our working group members, as well as Tessa will help go over the process for those who are part of the public who'd wish to participate and speak. But for working group members, if you would like to speak, just please go ahead and actually raise your hand, and then I will call on you. And then Tessa, can you just give a quick reminder to the public on how their comments work?
Thank you, Tori. Yes, if you are present and you would like to speak on any agenda item, please submit a request to speak form to me and bring it to me here at the desk. If you are online and you would like to provide public comments, please raise your hand as soon as the presentation is complete. And we call on members present in person first, and then members online following. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So do any working group members have any questions or comments about how that works? All right, seeing none, we will move on because we have a pretty packed agenda today. Okay, so item number 1 is our non-agenda public comments. So we will first, let's take staff comments first, and then we will go to any of our member comments, and then we can go to members of the public. So I think we have first for staff, Sam Sanford, Natasha Dolick, as well as Carrie Simmons. So if you'd like to come up to the podium and make those comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I believe I have a slide on this one just for 2 URLs, 2 resources. So for those who are here, you may remember myself, Sam Sanford from Regional Planning at SANDAG, and my colleague, Marissa Mangan, presented to this group in September about 2 planning efforts that have just been launched: a Vision Zero action plan, which is a safety plan for the region, and an update to the Regional Active Transportation Plan. In that presentation, we also announced forthcoming resources. And so now 2 of them are available. The top one is the traffic safety dashboard, the public-facing, interactive, essentially database of collisions in our region. And so the public decision makers can go in there. You can look at particular jurisdictions, different years, collision types, severities, tribal areas, as you're able to really navigate through there. So that was just launched. And then the item below that, Safer Streets Public Engagement Portal, is essentially a web-based tool where the public can go in and make comments to help inform both of these planning efforts, the safety plan and the active transportation plan. So the public can go in and drop a pin in an area where they see that there might be a gap in the active transportation network that they would like to see filled in a future plan, or they might put a pin in a location where they have felt unsafe or had a near miss incident with a vehicle or other moving object. So those are two resources I wanted to bring back to this group and let them know they're available. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Natasha?
Hi, everyone. My name is Natasha Dulick. I am a regional planner here at SANDAG on the climate team. I presented at your last meeting on our regional resilience framework, the project that we're doing and our accompanying tools that we've been working on. So I just wanted to update you that we will be sending out the draft framework to you all and your staff, and that incorporates all the feedback that we've heard from you and your staff. So be on the lookout for that early next month, so December, with the draft to provide input on. And feel free to reach out to me at any time over email about any of the questions you might have on the project. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carrie Simmons. I'm a regional planner on our housing team. I have two brief announcements to make you all aware of two upcoming virtual webinars we're holding, and I'll send links for both of these in the follow-up email to sign up. But our first is on November 30th. We're holding a 2023 new laws webinar, hosting it with ABAG. It'll be virtual. We're going to be going over all of the new housing land use laws that have come out and the implications to jurisdiction. So really encourage you to join and just kind of get an idea of what's coming up in the or what's been adopted in the 2023 legislative cycle. And the second webinar I wanted to make everyone aware of is we're going to be hosting through our Housing Technical Assistance Program, a housing rehabilitation program workshop. So we're going to be going over case studies, best practices, bring in some spotlight speakers, and just share resources that we have found with everybody and kind of bring everyone together to talk about these programs. So again, if you're interested, I'll send out links in the follow-up email to sign up. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any comments from any of our working group members that you want to share with others here, or any questions on any of the staff comments that were given? Okay, seeing none. Tessa, do we have any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now move forward with our approval of the meeting minutes, and we will be approving the meeting minutes from our September 21st meeting. Before we make a motion, are there any comments, changes, or suggestions that need to be made to the minutes? Okay, seeing none. If someone would like to make a motion in a second.
City of Imperial Beach will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Megan, for making that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And second from Sima. And
Could
then
we take public comments before you do the vote, please?
yes, thank you, Tessa, for that. Do we have any public comments on this item?
And there are no public comments on this item.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, do we need to do a roll call, or can we just do raise hand? Raise hand. If we can, for those in favor, if you could please raise your hand. Yeah, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you.
Can we ask if any abstentions on the minutes?
Any
please?
abstentions? Oh, we do have one from Rob here with the County of San Diego. Sorry,
Thank you.
you're right. You're not with the county anymore. My apologies. Carlsbad. Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to move on now to item number 3. And so we have Susan Friedman, who is our manager of our SANDAG's climate team here, who's going to do a presentation on the new planning grant from the EPA and ways to coordinate with local governments and stakeholders on this and future climate efforts. So go ahead, Susan, and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Tueri. Good to see everybody today. A lot of familiar faces. As Tueri mentioned, I gave a quick staff update on this, I think at your last meeting, and we'll be coming back here in February, I believe, with a draft plan that people can throw darts at. But to get started, what this is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program from EPA. They provided SANDAG with a $1 million grant to do planning over 4 years. But the two big projects are this first one up on the screen to create what's called a priority climate action plan. And that is really focusing on near-term greenhouse gas reduction measures. And it's going to be tied to future funding. And then the next step is going to be one that's going to go hand in hand with the development of the 2025 regional plan, is developing a comprehensive climate action plan. And this will be an appendix in the plan, as well as identifying a new regional greenhouse gas inventory, near and long-term GHG reduction measures, and identifying goals and strategies for the region. And all of these build on your local climate action and sustainability planning efforts, as well as the county's regional decarbonization framework. And then finally, this one's lackluster, do a status report at the end in 4 years. And potentially with each of these, it will also be tied to some funding opportunities. So SANDAG is doing this on behalf of the region and working with many of the local governments in the room. Everyone is welcome. We hold a monthly meeting with a lot of the climate and sustainability staff. This is, you don't need to read all of this, but I'll say the second column that says under March 1st, 2024, this is really a focus of what we're talking about today, is this priority climate action plan. And the reason that people should care about this is that by completing this plan and identifying a series of near-term measures that reduce emissions, those measures we can then compete for national funding of about $4.6 billion. And grant applications will be due April 1st of 2024. So that's why we're doing this PCAP process right now. And then the other ones we'll be coming back to the group to talk about later. Just as a refresher, this is from the 2021 regional plan, our greenhouse gas emissions, the pie chart on the right, which most of you know, but about half the emissions come from transportation, followed by electricity, which has a lot to do with the building sector, and natural gas, and so on. So that becomes a focus area. So what we heard, we had polled the local government staff, again, climate sustainability staff, and to find out what your local government priorities were, as well as what you thought were important at a region-wide effort. And there's a lot of similarities there. So in both areas, basically big focus areas were on reducing transportation emissions. So we're looking at vehicle and infrastructure for electrifying vehicles. That's cars, trucks, and buses, not just passenger vehicles. As well as building sector, how do we electrify buildings? How do we get more energy efficiency and solar into buildings? But it was highlighted more about existing buildings because the state does so much on the new building area, and we have codes for that. And similarly with transportation, reducing vehicle miles traveled. So this could be through bike projects. This could be through transit projects like flexible fleet projects, a wide variety that you've seen in the regional plan. Similar applications for the regional side. I did want to highlight, many people also voiced the need for adaptation planning and assistance there. It does not look like EPA through this funding source is going to be funding that type of effort, but it was still worth recognizing, what people think are a priority. We've also been going out to several community groups and events and been hearing some similar voices and some things a little different through meetings over the last couple months. So hearing from general public, a lot of folks, hey, let's reduce air pollution. Maybe it's less about greenhouse gas emissions, but so that could be targeting your trucks and other things. Reducing VMT, increasing transit, hitting on municipal fleets, kind of walk the talk before bringing other measures to your community. Also hear about urban forestry, increasing water efficiency, water projects. So really, I think we hear something about reducing emissions from around every sector when we're out in the community. But the big ones really are around transportation and buildings. So another piece of this grant that I did want to highlight is that the EPA has put a large focus on how are we coordinating with low-income and disadvantaged communities, and also hearing and getting input from them. So with this phase 1 planning grant, which is the top of the page, we've developed a draft community engagement plan. We've also set aside about $150,000 to work with our CBO network. And that is going to be for community engagement really through the regional plan, through that comprehensive plan, and a little bit right now through the priority plan that's due in March. Another piece is as we develop a plan on what our regional climate action plan should be, we need to look at how each measure benefits low-income and disadvantaged communities. I'll say the map on the right shows the CBOs that we are currently partnered with in the region. There's actually one more. This is the first 11, but the Escondido, I want to say, Tueri, do you know it? It's the Escondido
Compact.
Community Education Compact. They just joined as well. So we are going to be going to the CBO Outreach Network next month to talk to them about a contract and engagement. For the phase 2, for that $4.6 billion worth of funding, the EPA has stated that they're going to direct 40% of the funds to projects that benefit low-income and disadvantaged communities. So this is a big part of the project, and that's how we've been doing a lot more with the community engagement side before we start writing a plan or anything. In addition to that, I mentioned that the CBO network, but we are building off of, there are lots of climate action plans locally done in the region, and the EPA has really encouraged us to not reinvent the wheel. Let's look at what everyone's done, all the work that's been spent, and all the effort with your communities, and pull that in for what the regional priority climate action plan will be. So we're doing that. We're getting a lot of input from your staff, from any of your staff here. We are also finding out what kind of engagement you all did, and if there's some things, so we, again, don't reinvent the wheel. And we also have heard then what happened at a local level to then build off of as we do some region-wide workshops coming up. In addition, we're planning a climate workshop for December 6th. That's going to be targeting community groups, both CBOs, nonprofits, foundations, and other climate advocates, so that we can listen and hear what priorities are at the very localized level and see how we can incorporate that into our planning. And then we also want to just seek more input from you all here today. Like if you have suggestions, whether it's on the engagement or things that you find to be important in climate action planning or important for funding in the near term, we want to hear that too. So this is just a slide that kind of highlights things that I was sprinkling through the conversation. But why the time is now to be working on all of this is that this EPA grant funding, it's actually $4.3 billion is the nationwide competitive one. $300 million to total 4.6 is available for tribes and territories. And tribes and territories can apply to both pots of funds. 40% again of the project funding will be for supporting low-income and disadvantaged communities. Looking at EPA's maps, it's a pretty good matchup with our local maps when you're looking at CalEnviroscreen and looking at low-income communities with AB 1550. But so April 1 is when this is due. So we're talking to staff now, working on climate, on what things could go into a competitive proposal on behalf of the region to reduce emissions. And I'll share a couple things with that. It's a heavy coordination process because the EPA will only fund one measure, like at the local and state level. So say the state decides they're gonna fund, zero emission buses, then the region can't fund that as well. Or we can all apply for it, but only one entity is going to get funded that in an overlapping municipal area. So that's something we're going to coordinate, especially on the zero emission vehicle or infrastructure area, as well as on the buildings front, and we have monthly calls with the Air Resources Board, who is the state lead. Another one that we're going to be coordinating on with this is our tribal working group and with the local tribes, because we had 2 groups of tribes locally that did put into EPA and receive planning grant funds as well. And so we want to make sure, we're hearing from everybody and we're also addressing everyone's needs in this plan development. In that final bullet at the bottom there, the competitive grants, again, they're to fund what we do in this planning process over the next few months, this priority cap. And when I say near-term measures, EPA is talking about for their funding, it's things that need to be completed before 2030. So they're really looking at for that funding 2025 to 2030. So in addition to what we've heard from local government staff, we've also been talking to SANDAG's regional plan staff and each of the teams that are implementing flexible fleet measures, mobility hub measures, transit measures, to pull all of that together as well. So we plan to be coming back when we have some draft plan and the draft measures. But at this point, I can just stop and happy to take any questions or comments or ideas that you may have that we can pull into this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Do we have any comments or questions from any of our working group members? I'm sure this is an interesting item. I know some of you are interested in probably updating your caps or have some ideas or thoughts that maybe you can share today or in the future with Susan as they're pulling this together. Yes.
Michael at APCD, I just wanted to thank you, Susan, for your work on this. And, in talking to our staff that I think has been participating in those meetings, you alluded to the fact that there wouldn't be an opportunity for projects that are funded at the state level to also be funded locally. It's sort of one or the other. Is there an opportunity, though, for us to make sure that things that we want to include are included in our application, even if they do get funded at the state level, so that we don't miss out on an opportunity? I'm specifically thinking of things like, heavy duty truck infrastructure and heavy duty truck electrification incentives, things of that nature that our organization would usually work with you all on.
Yeah, I think at least for what goes in the priority climate action plan, so the planning document, we want to include what our local priorities are, regardless of what the state does or who gets the funding from the EPA, because what we put in the priority cap, we could also go for other federal agency or state funding for at a future time. I'm hopeful that CARB is not sure, but we're hopeful that we're going to find out what the state's going for ahead of time. He said they're working through it, with other state agencies and such first. But so potentially we could be putting in both, but we also with limited capacity, and there's also a limited page limit, technical analysis, that if we know for sure the state's going for something that's a universal statewide effort, it might not make sense to put it in the application because it takes away space from putting in something that could be a local measure. And one more thing with that, we're looking at SANDAG applying on behalf of the region, or looking at maybe EPA will accept a maximum of 2 applications within a region. So maybe it's we take on some of the effort and another agency takes on some of the effort so that we get as much as we can in the region. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that certainly don't want to duplicate efforts, right? But I had heard the same thing from our staff, that we're not quite clear on what the state's going to include in their application, and so that makes it a little more challenging given the timelines, right?
It makes it very challenging, and because they want you to do a memorandum of agreement with anybody who would be implementing the measures for you, so that takes time, and you're guessing at, do I have to do a bunch of MOAs with folks, or is the state going to take that over? And we just don't know yet. Good fun,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from our members? Well, Susan, if they have suggestions, when do you need to receive that, since that March deadline is around the corner?
We're going to be sending out information when we do have a draft in play, even if it's before we are back on a working group agenda, so that folks have time to review that. So we can work through with Carrie and you about getting information out to this working group when there's something online that we can share. But that would be best case late December, I'd say in January is when we'll have things to throw darts at.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Okay. Tessa, do we have any public comments on this item?
Thank you. There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Well, moving right along to item number 4, I'd like to introduce Stacy Cooper, who's one of our senior regional planners here in the housing program at SANDAG, and she'll be presenting on an update for the Regional Early Action Planning Grants 2.0, the proposed uses and the status of each of those. Go ahead, Stacey.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Terry said, I'm Stacy Cooper. I'm a senior planner on the Sustainable Communities team. I'm going to give you an update on REAP 2.0. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So SANDAG launched its Housing Acceleration Program with $6.8 million in REAP 1.0 funds. You'll hear later on from Sarah and Thomas about some of the initiatives that we're doing under REAP 1.0. But today we're here to talk about REAP 2.0, which was $43 million. It builds on the success of REAP 1.0, but it also expands the focus on the state's housing and climate goals. So SANDAG's receiving $43 million. The goals of this, Sorry, really struggling here. Okay. 3 program goals are accelerating infill development that facilitates housing supply, choice, and affordability, affirmatively furthering fair housing, and reducing VMT. So all of our proposed uses and all activities under REAP 2.0 have to fulfill all 3 of these objectives. So in order to put together our program, we did a lot of outreach and education. So the common themes that we got from our stakeholders were to ensure meaningful public involvement, prioritize long-term affordability and community benefits, streamline grant applications, consider shovel-ready and transformational projects, and promote implementation of existing plans. So our application was due to the state in December of 2022. These are the 4 activities that we proposed to the state. 1 is local jurisdiction support. 2 is our affordable housing program. 3, transit agency partnership, and 4 are tribal partnerships. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on each one of those. So with local jurisdictional support, we put out HAP Cycle 2 grants. Those were due in August, and those were awarded back in October. Well, they were brought to the board in October. We're also going to continue some of our technical assistance program that a lot of you are participating in. And Thomas will talk a little bit later about the policy and planning tools. So we had released the call for $16 million. There was no minimum. The maximum for each project is listed on the screen. And again, for everyone, the expenditure deadline for these awards is December 31st, 2025. So we received 3 capital and 12 planning applications. The request for capital that was also awarded was $6.5 million, and for planning, $5.8 million. And you can see on the screen which jurisdictions had applied and the number of applications per jurisdiction. So the awarded capital projects, the City of San Diego, the County of San Diego, and Del Mar. And those are the names of their projects. We will be updating our website at some point in the near future so that you could see a little bit more about each project. But in the meantime, if you have questions, you can either reach out to the housing team or to your friends at the other jurisdictions. And then the awarding planning projects are also listed above. We have San Diego, National City, Encinitas, Lemon Grove, San Marcos, Santee, Del Mar, and Imperial Beach. And again, jurisdictions were able to apply for more than 1 award, but we did award each jurisdiction once before going back around. We have an affordable housing program as well. So we'll be implementing with the San Diego Foundation, a regional housing trust fund that'll make $15 million available for housing here in the San Diego region. And then we also work a lot with the local jurisdictions and transit agencies on statewide funding coordination, like the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Program. Transit agency partnerships. So we are working with MTS and NCTD. You'll hear a little bit more about the Blue Line study from Lizzie and Emily. And we are also working closely with NCTD and MTS on a workforce housing program and a couple of other programs with both of the transit agencies. And we also have a tribal partnership. So we'll be allocating $2 million to the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association, or the SCTCA, to support each tribe's unique housing needs in the region. And then that's it. That's our update on the REAP 2.0 program. Any questions?
Thank you, Stacy. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Lynette.
Can you provide a little bit more information on the workforce housing program?
Sure. So we're actually working with Lily on the workforce housing program, and it'll be to putting together a program to house transit workers at TOD sites. So we're coordinating closely with MTS and NCTD on that. We'll be putting out the RFP hopefully soon. But Lynette, we can provide a little bit more information. Thomas is actually the one who's leading that initiative. It would be, how do we implement this program? What would it look like? All those type of things. But yes, for transit workers.
Yes, Carlos.
It's great to see that there's going to be funding available for affordable housing projects that really do need the gap financing these days. I know that we get a lot of information that targets us as cities. What is SANDAG doing to target nonprofits, nonprofit developers, and other community organizations about the funding opportunity?
So with that program, as I mentioned, we're coordinating with the San Diego Foundation. So we're in the process of putting together like our standard agreement and all of that. We've also been doing a little bit of outreach. We went to the affordable housing conference a few weeks ago to collect some information. We've been working with some of the nonprofit developers in the area and through our CBO network as well. But if you have any other suggestions or there's certain people that you would want to have us reach out to, we could. Actually, in another case, we've had a number of nonprofit developers hear about our program and reach out directly to us. The issue is we're still currently in like the initial stages, so I don't have tons of information. We know it'll be at least $15 million. We know it'll be administered through the San Diego Foundation. It has to fulfill, again, all three REAP 2.0 objectives, but in terms of other kind of criteria, we're considering doing no interest loans. We're just kind of working out the details of the program.
And we will have like webinars and things like that once
yeah.
we have the program more established and understood. So we'll make that information available to all of you. And we'll certainly be doing additional outreach with all of the developers so that they can make sure that they can take advantage of it. Because you're right, gap financing is a big part of it. And those pre-development costs.
Yeah, thank you for that, because it seemed like it was part of the REAP 2.0 package, but it'll be a follow-up, correct?
Yeah, it's part of the REAP 2.0 package, how Stacy mentioned, but because we're still early in the development of that part of the REAP program, we're working out some of the more legal logistical things and working with the foundation to help administer that for us. And then once we get through that, then we can focus really on the program requirements and communicate that so that people can know the schedule, understand all the parameters around it as well. Mm-hmm. Are there any other comments? Well, congratulations to all of the jurisdictions who received your capital and planning awards. And so hopefully you're excited about being able to do that. And it's a lot of work, a lot of money, a short amount of time. Thank you, Stacy. Tessa, do we have any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments.
All right. So we'll move on to item number 5. And so for this, we have regional planners, SANDAG, Lizzie Havey and Emily Doss, who are going to be presenting on the Blue Line Transit-Oriented Development Study and introducing the goals and the key milestones for that. So take it away.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Lizzie. I'm a regional planner on the Sustainable Communities team.
And my name is Emily Doss. I'm a regional planner on SANDAG's mobility team.
And today we're going to introduce the Blue Line Transit-Oriented Development Study. We're going to talk a little bit about the study, some of the goals. We're going to give context to the 2 sites that we're looking at, go over some of the tasks, and then open up for discussion and questions. A little bit about the study. The Blue Line TOD study will identify opportunities for encouraging and creating TOD at near 2 Blue Line trolley stations in 2 South Bay San Diego communities. We're looking at the San Ysidro station in the city of San Diego, as well as the Palomar station in the city of Chula Vista. The study will assess land use, transportation, and market conditions to inform strategies for TOD implementation, to highlight opportunities for potential development, community integration, and mobility improvements. The study will advance regional planning goals and support ongoing parallel efforts. Some of the funding sources was REAP 2.0, as well as a FTA pilot program for TOD. Why are we doing this study? Some of the goals, objectives, and themes. It's similar to some of our 2021 regional plan implementation actions to partner with the local jurisdictions and develop resources for mobility hub implementation. And as part of the SANDAG's 5 big moves, we understand mobility hub areas to be centers of activity and growth, and to not only provide mobility options, but foster placemaking strategies for where people can live, play, and grow. This also serves as a TOD case study for many of our light rail stations. So we're hoping that we can talk to you all today about how we can take this into more of a regional context. And then additionally, it aligns with some of our parallel efforts here at SANDAG, some of our projects and plans. When looking at San Ysidro, we're aligning with the San Ysidro Mobility Hub efforts. We have both phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 being near-term actions, phase 2 kind of being the long-term vision of what is San Ysidro going to look like. So we see this as a crucial piece to the future improvements in infrastructure at the San Ysidro Transit Center. And we want to work with those business owners and imagine the area as a hub. We also want to coordinate with the Blue Line Express study. The Blue Line Express study, it's not yet kicked off, but it will soon be. And the idea for that study is to improve travel times from the international border to downtown San Diego. So the study is looking at multiple opportunities, such as a rapid bus line, express service on the Blue Line, as well as potential connection to the coaster, as well as future possibilities of integrating with the Purple Line. And then lastly, at our Palomar location, SANDAG was recently awarded over $20 million for a grade separation at the Palomar trolley station. So to get us through design as well as environmental. So we're really excited about that. The goal there is to enhance safety for all the users. And then the last part for Palomar is that with the next generation rapid studies that SANDAG has been doing, we do have rapid bus route 625 that would go from Palomar Station all the way to SDSU. So definitely big hubs for improvements. To get a little bit more into the study areas, this is what it looks like on a map. There are a couple stops away from one another. We are looking at the southern segment of the Blue Line. You can see Palomar again in Chula Vista and San Ysidro in the city of San Diego, right at the international border. We picked these sites for a number of reasons, but really with understanding that there is upcoming investments in infrastructure. And we want to make sure that we are looking at these sites comprehensively to include land use, to look at TOD opportunities. To get a little bit more into Palomar, Palomar is really interesting. I think Palomar and San Ysidro are definitely different and unique in their own ways. Palomar, you see a lot of proximity to retail and commercial. We also see more vacant lots and more areas for potential TOD development, affordable housing, a number of those things. And then we'll see the near-term Palomar grade separation study, as well as the future infrastructure being developed there. A little bit about the ridership. If you can see here, it's the third most utilized trolley station. You can see a lot of on and off boardings here in the southern segment. So that was a big reason why we were looking at this site. This Palomar, this chart, shows the most recent data that we have from January 2023 to May 2023. Just a glimpse at the land use. This is what we're looking at. So we see much more residential, commercial. We also know that there's open space and there is parks and schools nearby. We're excited. We'll talk a little about the CBOs, but we're also working really closely with both the city of Chula Vista and the city of San Diego.
And then to talk a little bit about circulation in the area, Palomar Station is well served by transit. 3 bus lines and the trolley service the station. A large, highly utilized park and ride lot is available to transit users. Class 3 bike lanes run adjacent to the station, and class 2 and 3 bike lanes run throughout the study area of influence. Additionally, this station is currently served by the City of Chula Vista's microtransit program, the Chula Vista Shuttle. However, the service is only currently available to riders 55 and over. Pedestrian and cyclist safety is a concern at this location for sure. Pedestrian infrastructure needs improvement in several nearby corridors. We will be sure to evaluate this in our study. We will also be utilizing SANDAG's traffic safety dashboard that Sam had mentioned earlier during public comments.
And now to talk a little bit about San Ysidro. So San Ysidro is a really interesting location. We are building momentum, working with MTS in parallel efforts with some of the ongoing studies there as well. We're hoping to look beyond just the transit center and not repeat what has been done in the past, but understand the potential for development in this area. We know that approximately 80 to 90,000 people are crossing northbound here, which every day to get to school, to work, to be with family, to be with the friends and run businesses, live their lives. And about 20,000 pedestrians are crossing on foot as pedestrians. So this is an area that receives a high volume of people. Nearby, there are really great commercial hubs. There's the outlets as well as a number of small businesses in the area and the historical district. So we know this has great potential for transit-oriented development, again, given the volume of the people and its unique location situated at the international border. For ridership, this is, we see the most amount of boardings here. Again, a number of people are coming in through the San Ysidro location, and that's why we're doing a number of studies, not only the Blue Line TOD study, but the Blue Line Express to see how can we get people moving faster. A little bit about the land use. This area is very different. You hardly see any residential. You see much more commercial, retail, office space, definitely lots of government land, of course, and it is quite constrained, kind of given the footprint of San Ysidro and the nearby mountains and some of the other constraints of the border itself. Yeah, I'll let Emily talk a little about circulation.
So the San Ysidro station is also well served by transit, 3 bus lines, and the trolley service the station. As mentioned earlier, San Ysidro sees the highest ridership for the Blue Line south of downtown. Additionally, Class 2 bike lane serves the transit station, and the volume of the pedestrian flow at the station make it especially unique. The Border to Bayshore Bikeway is currently underway to link the international border to the greater regional bike network. So now I'll go into our project task for this study. We kicked off this project with our consultant Gensler in October. Here you'll see the project tasks. We are currently working on tasks 2 and 3 and are just starting out task 4. In 2024, we will begin work on implementation strategies, developing conceptual TOD site plans, and complete the final report. We will also be working with 2 of SANDAG's CBOs on this project for the public engagement task, South Bay Community Services and the Chula Vista Community Collaborative. Leveraging CBO's expertise will enable the project team to best evaluate the community's needs. Our Our project development team, as Lizzie had mentioned, is staff made up from SANDAG, MTS, City of Chula Vista, and the City of San Diego, as well as those CBOs. To go a little bit more into the site identification and the market analysis, our consultant Gensler has a pre-developed TOD opportunity site tool that includes evaluating quantitative and qualitative data that will rate bike access, ped access, transit access, community resources, and community health, and development potential. This index inputs are adjustable to best fit the needs of each study site and the community. The market analysis task will include a real estate market analysis and identify highest and best use scenarios, leveraging state law and local land use regulations, appropriate public financing models, and identify potential private funding opportunities to develop future housing, retail, commercial, and other land uses that could be supported by the year 2035. It will also identify opportunities to maximize housing density. And as Lizzie had mentioned, this market analysis is fairly new to SANDAG when studying TOD, so we're really excited about this piece of the study. And then here is our project schedule. As mentioned, we kicked off in October and we'll be wrapping up the final report for this study in December 2024. As you can see, stakeholder and public engagement lasts through the duration of the project, so we will be sure to return to this group to provide updates next year.
And although the study is quite specific to those 2 trolley stations, we are interested in understanding how we can leverage and scale this project as a case study, how we can really talk about mobility hub implementation throughout the region and using this as an example. So interested to hear from you all today about how this could be leveraged to help in your jurisdiction, if you have any light rail stations. Some of the opportunities, we're going to be having a lot of recommendations and suggestions as outputs of the study, as deliverables. And so wondering how that can extend to have more of a regional focus.
Okay, so I think we'll leave this slide up so that we can engage in any discussion. If anyone has any thoughts on leveraging this from our members here to provide to the project team on how you might see this being useful, different parts of the tasks that maybe you would like to see. Lillian, do you have your hand raised? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Lillian Doherty. I'm with the North County Transit District. So the Mobility Hub catalog was developed quite a while ago. I think it would be really helpful as we move forward with TODs across the region to look at that Mobility Hub catalog and look at how those recommendations could apply to these TOD projects, which of those items are in terms of priority, which would best serve that TOD site and really serve mobility. Because there's so many of them, I think oftentimes developers feel overwhelmed, like which ones to choose. And obviously when you're developing these sites, you're making choices constantly about how much does this cost? What is the benefit of that? And so I think it would be really helpful to receive a sort of a streamlined list of priorities, like these are the best of the options when you're implementing the different options provided by the Mobility Hub catalog. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Lynette.
Can you speak a bit more about the TOD Opportunity Index? Is that like an open portal? Is the idea that that's going to be utilized or could be utilized for a developer or jurisdiction to substantiate a grant application or to know an area where they might be deficient that they could apply for grant monies, or how is that going to be utilized?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my understanding that this is a tool from the consultant, so I believe it's a proprietary tool. I do think we have the opportunity now to kind of create inputs about, we talked about pet access and transit access. We have a wiggle room to kind of add a little bit more. What are future developments? What are some near-term, long-term infrastructure improvements at the site that we can also influence this tool? I think taking some of that methodology might be something that we could move forward with when we think more about Mobility Hub implementation in the region. So that's something to consider, like in the future, how we propose these types of opportunities to the local jurisdictions and, you know, different suggestions that we have as well for like the private partner. I think some of the suggestions or recommendations, I think we can use similar methodology in kind of an internal way or do something of that nature. But it is a proprietary tool in my understanding right now. But again, I think we can move something forward.
Thank you. And maybe there's an, I guess just building a little bit off of what Lynette said, maybe if there's an opportunity for us, once we know all of the different things that are going to be used in the tool, as far as the data inputs, if we can see which ones are, you know, more telling in terms of the whole methodology, maybe those are opportunities for us to be able to share that with the group here and with others. And if there's some form of propensity analysis and you're trying to understand what are those measures or that are kind of moving the needle the most, maybe we could give you some insights into that.
Yeah, that's definitely a piece that the next time that we come back, probably next spring, that we'll have a ton of more information on for you, Lynette.
Are there any other comments or thoughts about how this study might be able to benefit more than just the 2 specific sites that they've highlighted here, but any Mobility Hub work that you may be doing in your local jurisdiction? All right. Seeing no comments, thank you both, Lizzie and Emily. Tessa, do we have any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we're moving right along actually with our agenda here, so we're doing good on time. Our next item, number 6, is going to be a presentation given by Sarah Thoma. She's also a senior regional planner here at SANDAG, and she's going to be presenting on an overview of the anti-displacement strategy, as well as the accompanying toolkit that's we're hoping will be able to support you as local jurisdictions as you might think of adopting or implementing your own anti-displacement policy. So Sarah, feel free to start when you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you, Tueri. My name is Sarah Thoma, Senior Regional Planner here at SANDAG. I'll be presenting to you the anti-displacement strategy. It's an update, mostly focusing on the toolkit. Our agenda, or my presentation agenda, will focus on project recap and deliverables, overview of existing conditions and best practices report, or best practice report that we have already completed, and then go through the overview draft policy of the briefs. We're calling them briefs of the toolkit, and then hope that if you guys have any final refinements that you would provide it to us, because we're hoping to have this project complete in January of 2024. So as you all know, rising housing costs in San Diego region are creating all sorts of challenges. One of the biggest challenges is the ability of many households to afford the cost of housing. This had led to what we call residential displacement. And residential displacement is a term that we are using to describe when existing residents have to move for reasons outside their control. These reasons can be as extreme and forced as an eviction, but can also include rising rents, neighborhood change, and natural disasters and more. So the project has three main deliverables, as I stated before. It's the existing condition, the best practices report, and the anti-displacement toolkit. The existing conditions report evaluates the displacement risk throughout the region to give us a better understanding of where displacement is occurring and where there is a risk in future displacement is. The best practices report, which includes reviewing case studies, plans, and programs, targeted discussions with stakeholders, and an overview of policies that prevent displacement. And lastly, it's the toolkit. This has tailored to the needs of local jurisdiction to create, adopt, and implement displacement policies. We created the tools that localities could use that also provide local-oriented guidance to inform by prior work that's tailored specifically to the needs and conditions of the San Diego region's communities. In short, the three components that I just highlighted is comprised of the SANDAG anti-displacement strategy. So the existing conditions report and the accompanying map provides an overview of the findings that forces displacement and which populations are most impacted. The project team met with SANDAG Social Equity Working Group and our community-based organization outreach team, as well as with other focus groups of the community members across the region. And several key themes emerged from the stakeholders' engagement. So displacement is driven by, among other factors, rising costs of living, not only rent, but also utilities and high deposit requirements, widespread of harassment and abuse by landlords, lack of enforcement of limited renters protection, especially for undocumented people, limited knowledge of renters protection / rights. There is a need for a regional resource to connect low-income renters with affordable housing options and resources. We drew a few main conclusions from our analysis. Displacement is a significant problem in the San Diego County, not just in the city of San Diego, but also in the North and East County areas. Areas experiencing displacement are largely urban or suburban, whereas rural parts of the county are less affected. Almost all remaining affordable neighborhoods in the county are experiencing displacement, meaning that there's limited housing options for displaced families. This suggests that the households are likely being forced to leave San Diego region entirely. San Diego County has a severe lack of rental units affordable to households making less than 50% of the area median income, putting them at risk for forcing them to double up with family or friends or spend too much on their income on rent. Steep increases in rent in recent years have put even more pressure on renters struggling to afford housing. So in the best practices report provides an overview of a wide range of policies to prevent displacement with both short-term measures and long-term strategies. This report utilizes dozens of academic research, articles, and case studies of communities throughout the nation and have sought to mitigate the impact of residential displacement. Ultimately, there's no one community that has fully resolved the vexing challenges behind the residential displacement, nor in any policy or narrow set of policies to solve this issue. Rather, based on academic research and case studies, as this report presents, a range of policies is needed to ensure the region, ensure the region has an abundant supply of homes, B, maintain the affordability of existing homes, and C, regulate the operation of existing homes to support neighborhood stability so residents can remain in place. So as I stated earlier in my slides, we have drafted a policy briefs that are tailored to local jurisdictions' needs to implement the anti-displacement policy. The idea was to develop this toolkit that can be easily accessible, organized, and has useful resources available all in one spot. So the central element of the anti-displacement toolkit are the policy briefs. Ultimately, the toolkit will include 10 main policy briefs. We're also working on 24, kind of a quick summary, because these reports tend to be a little larger, and I know all of you guys here in the room don't have time to read these large reports, so we're kind of trying to also condense this, but that'll be at the end of the document. So these policies are meant to be a practical, detailed document of how to implement anti-displacement policies. And then to get started, we identified 3 priority policies for initial review and feedback, which we held 2 workshops, one in July and one in September, which some of you have participated in. Thank you for your feedback. Based on the local jurisdiction staff feedback, we modified the policies to refine the format and the content to include clear examples relevant to specific jurisdiction, draft language, and program designs. Also, what we learned from stakeholder engagement and data showed greatest needs for preservation, stability, and production. So these are the 10 policy briefs, are based on the research analysis from the existing conditions and the best practices report, as well as stakeholder engagement outreach efforts that help shape this list. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with this set of lists. We basically took it from you guys and try to build from it. There we go, the clicker's not working. We structured the policy briefs to follow this outline. They each begin with a summary of the policy, include its goals, description, and a target population, key stakeholders, and then it describes the time frame for its impact to be seen, whether its impact are seen in the short term, long term. And next we get into some of the special consideration, including pros and cons, and financial and political consideration. The briefs then describe steps of implementation policies and concludes with case studies. And that concludes my presentation. Sorry, I know sometimes I talk a little fast. Please feel free to let me know if you have any questions, comments, suggestions.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Any comments or questions from our members? Okay. Right, I am seeing none. Well, I hope that you'll all get a chance to take a look at these. As you know, Sarah did present this also to our social equity working group, and they had quite a lot of comments and feedback and questions about the policy briefs. And so we want to make sure that local jurisdictions, your staff, if it's not you or someone on your staff, possibly can review those and making sure that you're familiar with any. And if there are any that you would be interested in diving into further, you know, I know Carrie, she leads our technical assistance program. So if there's some that you really want to, you know, start utilizing a bit more, we encourage you to use that technical assistance program where you get free consultant hours to help do it for you. So if you're short on staff, as many of you are, this would be an opportunity to leverage some of that consultant hours to do it. Okay, all right. Tessa, do we have any public comments on this?
There are no public comments.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Okay, so this is our last report item. Item number 7, Thomas DeFranco, who's a regional planner here at SANDAG, is going to be presenting on an update of our housing policy and planning tool, along with our consultant, Mayu Tanaka from Diet and Batia.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you all. My name is Thomas DeFranco. I'm a regional planner on SANDAG's Sustainable Communities team. Today, I'm coming back to the Sustainable Communities Working Group with Mayu Tanaka from Diet and Batia to provide an update on the work we've done on our housing policy and planning tool, or the HPPT. Our goal today is to provide some insights into how the products and reports built could be used, and to receive input from you all to how we can make the HPPT more useful for your jurisdictions. There we go. To provide some quick context, SANDAG launched our Housing Acceleration Program, or HAP, with the Regional Early Action Planning Grant funding from the state, of which we initially received $6.8 million. And the REAP 1.0 strategy is comprised of 3 core activities. Today, you've heard about some of these activities. The Housing Policy and Planning tool is included in the data analysis and policy resources strategy. Now let's get into the products. So we've done some exciting work to better understand housing data at a regional level with the HPPT, and we've really tried to align these efforts to go hand in hand with our technical assistance program, which many of you are working in as well. And we also wanted this to align with jurisdictions' housing element monitoring needs that you all have as programs in your housing elements. SANDAG's HPPT is meant to be the regional online housing resource hub for policymakers, staff, and even the public to support the implementation of housing elements and better understand our housing production data coming from the region. Our goal is really to help support regionally aware local planning. We've organized the HPPT into 6 main products, which you will see on the screen. I'll be providing an update on 5 of these products: the housing data packages and reports, the 6th cycle RENA progress report, housing element compliance report, policy templates and toolkits, and the affordable housing case studies. The 6th product, which is the anti-displacement strategies, my colleague Sarah Toma just spoke about previously. All these products can be found on our open data portal. So if you go right now to opendata.sandag.org, and it's under the Housing Policy and Planning Tool tab, you can follow along with me. And we can get started presenting on some of the products. So the last time that we came to you all in May, I presented our affordable housing case studies, which were basically fully built out. So just as a reminder, these 25 case studies were to be used as a repository of best practices throughout the region. They're displayed in a downloadable PDFs on a map. You can read them, share them, and they're really meant to provide additional context and information about who is building affordable housing, how it's getting financed, and where it's getting built. The next report is our housing element compliance report. This simple view is to make it very clear and easy for SANDAG, the public, and policymakers to see where the region is at with our housing element compliance. Just so that we're all aware, as of this morning, 15 jurisdictions are in compliance, 3 are in review with HCD, and 1 is out of compliance. We're aware that the data currently on HCD's site and our site is a little bit delayed, so we're hoping to be updating that soon. I'll now be speaking to some of the new data packages and reports in the HPPT. As I previously said, the goal of these reports is to support regionally aware local planning efforts. And feedback to how these reports look is very welcome. The next product, which has gone through some significant updates since we last spoke, is our APR Housing Data Explorer. In collaboration with SANDAG's data science team, we're able to geospatially code every permitted unit submitted via the jurisdiction's annual progress reports since 2018. This tool finally allows us to geospatially analyze at a regional level housing permitting data and provides some really interesting regional insights. It includes reports on production trends by structure type and affordability, and allows you to filter these reports by categories and by unit categories and by jurisdiction. As an example, this visualization shows since 2018, most of the region's very low and low income permitted units have come from structures with 5 or more units, traditionally known as multifamily housing. Additionally, you can see that the ADU category includes a high amount of moderate income units, which are traditionally very difficult to build. Another example report on this slide shows how you can visualize on a map all of the multifamily housing permitted in any city between 2018 and 2022. This map specifically on this slide shows all of the multifamily housing permitted in the city of San Diego. The bar chart below then displays the distribution of these multifamily units by year and also by affordability. And again, just as a reminder, this data is available for all of you to download right now as well. Another newly released report on the HPPT is our ADU data package and report. This report provides us a tool to analyze where ADUs are being permitted throughout the region, allowing public and policy leaders to gain useful insights into how new ADU policy could be working to spur development across the region. Many of you specifically have programs within your housing elements to analyze and record your ADU progress. Or you've communicated to us the need for data reports to provide to the public and to decision makers when speaking about ADUs. This report is absolutely meant to support that effort. It allows you to analyze what affordability levels are being permitted where, allows jurisdictions to compare their production to surrounding communities. And I wanted to just quickly provide you an example of some interesting regional insights that we have found through this ADU report. So first, we can take a look at overall numbers. There have been 6,709 total ADUs permitted between 2018 and 2022 in the San Diego region. The city of San Diego, the county of San Diego, and Encinitas round out the top 3 jurisdictions with produced units, or I should say permitted units. Since 2018, the region went from permitting 484 units to permitting over 2,000 units a year. Seeing year-over-year increases between 2018 and 2019 and 2020 and 2021. This indicates the relatively strong growth of ADUs from a multitude of new state and local policies that you all have been implementing. Of these 6,709 units, 5,907 of them, or about 88%, have been at the 80% AMI or higher affordability level. And like I previously said, because we geospatially coded each ADU permit, we created it as its own data set that you can download. So if you need to build any sort of reports on ADUs, maybe that aren't already built in this report, you can either work with us to build that or you can build it yourselves. Here's an example of a regional affordability report on ADUs. This report shows that there are currently 11 jurisdictions reporting that they're permitting low and very low income ADUs. It also specifically shows which census tracts these affordable units are getting permitted in. You can see North County Coastal has some permitted very low and low income units, but it's mostly our inland and unincorporated communities. Here's a further breakdown of the of the moderate and above moderate income categories as well. And because we geospatially coded each of these ADU permits, we can also build cool tools like heat maps to compare neighborhoods within a city, like this heat map of the city of San Diego. This heat map between where you can compare East and West Chula Vista. And you can also use it to compare neighboring cities, like this map, which shows San Marcos and Escondido. To conclude, once again, the goal of all of these reports are to support regionally aware local planning, and feedback to how these reports can support that are welcome. And the last data report, which we'll be releasing hopefully in early 2024, will be our 6th cycle RENA progress report. As we are all aware, the San Diego region must adequately plan for 171,685 new housing units by 2029, as mandated by the state of California. This report will track our region's progress towards that goal. The data will be updated annually in the spring as jurisdictions, as you all submit your annual progress reports. In the past, we've provided these RENA reports at the end of each RENA cycle, but this dashboard will allow us to review every year with the most up-to-date data, the progress that you all are getting on the 6th cycle RENA. Part of this report will include being able to see the raw numbers between each affordability level and each jurisdiction, the percent attainment between each jurisdiction of each affordability level. And we're really excited to release that one as well. Talking really quickly about data accuracy, which is really important when presenting any data publicly. Everyone here who has worked on an APR, who has worked with housing data, knows how difficult it can be. And SANDAG wants to ensure that we are also accurately displaying this data, which you have all submitted to the state. So in all of these reports, we've included disclaimers which note the potential issues with APR data. And I want to communicate that through SANDAG's technical assistance program, we will again be coordinating office hours for jurisdictions who need support through the APR process or have any questions about the housing production data as a region. And the last product I'll be speaking to today is our Housing Policy Resources site. This site holds a repository of housing policy guides, trainings, templates, and other resources, that you and staff can use to supplement your planning work. It is on this page that you can access the HAP TA resources that have been developed by Ascent, our technical assistance providers. And these resources have been organized by topic and are meant to be used as just a good general resource site for housing policy. On the screen here, you can see that so far the TA program heavily involves creating different templates, toolkits, and policy memos to support the implementation of a lot of recent housing laws. So for instance, we've developed a toolkit for AB 2011 and SB 6. We held a webinar workshop on that and many of you attended. So this is where you can, I think all of those materials were emailed out to you, but if you ever need to find a link for them or email them around, they're available on that website. And that's the conclusion of our HPPT update. Mayu and I are here to answer any questions that the working group may have. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Thomas. That was a really great presentation and a lot of really good information. So I do want to open it up if there are any member comments. Tara?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I agree, very informative. I did have a follow-up question on the housing element compliance report. I was curious as to how often that is updated and what does it look at? Does it look at like progress being made on the implementation plan with regards to programs? Could you clarify?
Yeah, sure. So there's 3 categories that HCD provides, and it's an actual data feed that HCD updates. Now, what we've found when we connected to HCD's data feed is that they do not update it as frequently as maybe we would like. But if you go right now this morning on HCD's feed, it is up to date with those 15 jurisdictions in compliance, 3 in review and 1 out of compliance. It does not go in. So the HCD does have the information about the programs that get submitted by you all through the APRs every year. We are not going to be displaying that on this. This is really kind of just meant to be like a quick visualizer of which jurisdictions are in compliance, out of compliance, or in review.
I'm just curious about the internal QA/QC for the data, because I'm looking at some of our numbers and they look a little bit different than I think that we would report. So are you reporting just on permitted units, not entitled units?
Correct. So all of this data is just permitted unit data. So when you submit the APRs, you submit, permitted, entitled, completed. For RENA, really, it's just permitted data that they look at. So we wanted to just take a look at permitted data. We also have heard a lot that the entitled and the completed units, there's a lot of potential inaccuracies there with the entitled and completed units. So we really wanted to just focus on the permitted section. I think there is a place for entitled and completed, and I think we're trying to figure out what that looks like. So if you have suggestions to that or would like to talk more about that, would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I had a comment, if I could. I was looking at the APR housing data, I believe it is. Let me see. I'm sorry. My comment was going to be about the data, just having it for the respective, it was, the APR Housing Data Explorer. So when you're looking at that data and you're pulling up information like permits, permitted units by jurisdiction, So there's a box that has that. It doesn't give you the date that is pulling from. So is that for 22? Is that up to date, like to real time
It
in
should-
23?
So right now we have it set to where it's 2018 to 2022. I think there was a filter on there that allowed you to filter between those years. So you could indicate 2018, 2019, 2022. You could show all of them if you wanted to. I think it actually got taken down in the latest update, but we're working to get that placed back on there. So you'd be able to filter for multiple years, for one individual year. So I think right now it's just for 28, it's for the entire.
It's the entire,
period.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any other comments, thoughts, or feedback? Yes, Megan.
Thank you for providing the presentation. You provided a lot of information. It's really appreciated. I'm looking at the housing policy resources page, and I'm wondering how often are you planning on updating that? A lot of legislation passes pretty regularly. And would there be an opportunity to include some sort of tracking tool to show how individual jurisdictions are actually implementing these types of items? Thanks.
That's a really good idea. I appreciate that suggestion. So we're shortly, and I think the next month, we're going to be having the new laws webinar. We're going to be going over a lot of the new legislation. I think from that new legislation, we'll hopefully be developing some new tools and templates for you all, and those will absolutely be updated on that website. As our Ascent builds out those products, or as new products become available. For example, the Casita Coalition just released like a new policy memo about AB 1033. So we'd love to get that up there and available so that we can link you all to that directly. The updates are hopefully every month or as new content comes out.
Thanks.
That is a great suggestion. Maybe there is a way, if we could see how some of these are being tracked or implemented throughout the jurisdictions. I know that everyone is curious as to when others are doing it. We are also hearing that the legislators, the senators, they're interested in knowing how their bills are being implemented and who's already put them in place. So yeah, maybe that's something we can talk to the consultant about, or since Mayu is here, as a note to make as a potential in the future. Any other comments or questions for Thomas? All right.
Cool.
I
Thank you,
am
everyone.
Seeing none. Thank you so much, Thomas. Okay, Tessa, do we have any public comments on this item before we move on to the next one?
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next item is item number 8, which is just our upcoming meetings. So the next working group meeting is actually going to be a joint working group meeting, and that's scheduled for the date that you see here on the screen, Thursday, January 25th of next year at 10 a.m. And this is going to be a joint working group forum. This is the third in a series of joint working group sessions that we've done at the library downtown, focused on the development of the 2025 regional plan. So we'd love to make sure that all of you are there, and Carrie will be sending that information out if not already. But if you want to go ahead and hold your calendars for that on January 25th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and that'll be at the downtown library. And then following that, our next regularly scheduled meeting is going to be February 15th, and Carrie will also be sending out a calendar hold for that one. That one will be here at SANDAG at our normal regularly scheduled time at 1:30 p.m. But this makes actually our last meeting officially for the calendar year. If you can believe it or not, we are already talking about ending 2023 and looking forward to 2024. So hope everyone has a wonderful holiday Thanksgiving week next week, and we'll look forward to seeing you at various meetings between now and the end of the year, but certainly we'll look forward to seeing everyone in the start of the new year. So thank you all very much. And if you do have any particular topics of discussion, or if there's anything that you've heard today or feel like we haven't touched on that you want us to start touching on and bringing to you at the start of the new year, please make sure that you can email Sarah or Carrie, and they'll add that to the list and make sure we add it to our future agenda items. But thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry, Tessa, do we have public comments on this item before we adjourn?
You don't need to take public comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.